Robbie here from CFSB Nutrition at CrossFit South Bend. Today we're going to talk about some different ways that food can cause stress. So we all know kind of the usual suspects, right? We know that cravings can cause stress. We know that if you eat something that doesn't agree with you, that can cause digestive distress and things of that nature. But today I'm going to talk about some of the more biochemical causes that exist in food that can lead to stress that some people aren't familiar with. I think there's 100% a component of psychological stress that goes above and beyond any of this stuff. You could have all this stuff in line, and if there's trauma in your life or death in the family or what have you, it doesn't matter what you're going to eat. That can help support that, but it's not sufficient to relieve psychological stress. So I don't mean to suggest that, food is the only source of stress, but what I want to highlight is the fact that one of the main causes of stress that we don't often think about is food. I've had many people who have worked with me come to me after they've changed their food habits and said, I'm just less anxious, I'm less angry now that I've cut certain foods out. And it's no surprise given the fact that these can lead to stress. So let's talk about some of these different items in more detail. So first of all, let's start off with certain types of protein. So in general, protein is a very good thing. We need plenty of it to build muscle, to be healthy, to do all sorts of things in our life for repair of hair, skin, and nails. But there are a number of different types of proteins in food that don't just cause allergic reactions, but can cause certain food sensitivities and chronic and systemic inflammation. The two most famous of which these days are gluten, a protein present in wheat, barley, and rye, and casein, a protein present in dairy products, both of which, not in everyone, but in a great number of people, especially those with chronic stress and compromised digestive systems, can lead to chronic and systemic inflammation. So to the extent you can minimize these, or at the very least, guys, even if you don't buy this as elimination completely, not making it the foundation of your diet. Do you know what I'm saying? Maybe you say, well, I can still include bread and milk. Okay, have at it, see how you feel. But at the same time, this doesn't need to make up 75% of the food you're eating. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of the way it is today in the standard American diet, where this is an overwhelming majority of what we're eating. Carbs. Lots of different ways that carbs can contribute to stress, mainly through blood sugar dysregulation. So, in a typical day, our blood sugar should be nice and stable, and then we wake up and we have a bagel and orange juice, and it goes, spikes up in the air, and then it crashes, and then you need your Snickers bar, and it spikes, and it crashes, then you need your Subway sandwich, and it spikes, and it crashes. All of those spikes and crashes are inflammatory. Those lead to chronic and systemic inflammation, which can lead to stress. Leads to people being hangry, hungry plus angry. So excess carbohydrates can lead to stress. FODMAPs, not in everyone and not always, but these fermentable carbohydrates found in certain foods like apples and artichokes and broccoli, which are otherwise healthy, if you have compromised digestion, can lead to gas and bloating and constipation and diarrhea. And then, of course, sugar. Sugar basically has no positive health benefits whatsoever, especially in its processed and refined forms. And, carbs are not the same as sugar. So you can get plenty of carbs from things like white potatoes, or white rice without getting much in the way of sugar. Fats. So, people think saturated fat is the devil and the demon, when in reality, probably one of the most significant contributors to our overall ill health today is the imbalance between omega-3 fats and omega-6 fats, both of which are polyunsaturated fats, the so-called healthy fats. In reality, omega-3 fats are very anti-inflammatory, generally speaking, so things like fish and sardines and seafood more generally, and omega-6 fats tend to be pro-inflammatory, so things like corn oil, cottonseed oil, peanut oil, things of that nature are highly, highly inflammatory in the body, and they can be a major source of stress. And one of the main issues today is that all processed foods, all restaurant foods are made with these cheap industrial seed oils, and that leads to chronic and systemic inflammation in the body. Micronutrients. So micronutrients themselves aren't generally going to cause stress, but micronutrient deficiencies will. So if you are deficient in magnesium or selenium or vitamin A or vitamin D, that is a stress on the body. And it can manifest itself in terms of different cravings. So magnesium deficiency, for example, can manifest itself as a craving for chocolate. Does that mean you're craving chocolate because you're deficient in magnesium? Maybe, maybe not. But this can definitely be a contributor to overall stress. So, our belief is the more you eat real whole food, which is very micronutrient dense, and the more you minimize processed and refined food, the healthier you will be overall. So, make your eating more about this stuff and less about this stuff, and you will be doing better overall. Food additives. So many here that have been linked to, ADD and ADHD and digestive issues, things like food colorings and additives. Monosodium glutamate can act on the glutamate receptors in the brain and create this kind of state of hyperarousal and excitability, which again can lead to stress. And then certain habits around food, the extent to which someone feels like they need a particular food or they can't do without it, or I'm going to reward myself because I had a hard day, with a pizza or a chocolate cake or something like that. All of those things can contribute to stress as well. So those are the ones that we're more familiar with, but these other biochemical causes can play a role in creating stress as well. So what is the overall headline? Well, surprise, surprise, like every other video we've ever done, eat more real whole food, minimize your intake of processed and refined food, and generally speaking, that will help minimize contributors to biochemical stress in your life. Again, there could be all sorts of contributors to psychological or mental or emotional stress, and that's its own thing that requires, therapy or other work to fix. But from a biochemical stress perspective that can then lead to psychological stress potentially, minimizing your processed and refined food in favor of real whole food will do a lot to help you feel less stressed. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.